bringing all the stakeholders of India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor together is a masterstroke. This project will cement strong historical ties of India with the Arab and Asian world. It will further strengthen our relations with the European nations. This chessboard move tilts the geopolitical situation in India's favor. It has immense potential for strengthening bonds of trade, economy, and cultural cooperation in the world. A project of this dimension has been crafted by genius minds of India. Welcome to The Matrix. This multinodal transport project consists of two separate corridors. East Corridor connecting India to West Asia, North Corridor connecting West Asia to Europe. The project will include a rail line that will provide cost-effective cross-border ship-to-rail transit network and will supplement the existing multinodal transport routes, which will enhance transshipments of goods and services between Southeast Asia through India to West Asia, Europe, which is remarkable, and these connectivity initiatives are inclusive, consultative, and transparent with respect to the sovereignty and territorial integrity of all the countries involved. The project will go a long way in creating a geopolitical understanding between the stakeholders. Today, I have with me Muhammad Mudassir Qamar, who is Associate Professor at the Center of West Asian Studies in JNU, to discuss this important development. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Let me start by asking you, would you agree that this project is a masterstroke for India?
Absolutely. If one looks at the current geopolitical situation in the world, especially in West Asia and the Indian Ocean region, this is certainly a masterstroke, because if you look at the geopolitics of connectivity over the last decade or so, one of the reasons that the region of Indian Ocean was considered to be slightly on the margins was because of the lack of connectivity. And this is something which has been now recognized by India and by the regional countries which are India's strategic partners, such as Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, as well as Israel. And then you have countries like the members of the European Union and the United States, which are also on board, which means that this, if implemented and if it comes about in quick time, this is certainly a masterstroke, and it will change the shape of geopolitics in the world.
Right, absolutely. Now we know that Prime Minister Modi had taken a great initiative in the form of this project, and he was leading all the way. But getting consensus of all the stakeholders on a project like this must have been a very difficult task. We know that the National Security Advisor Ajit Doval and the External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar has been working on it. Now this requires geniuses, to work behind the scenes to, get this kind of agreement or agreements. What would you say?
No, certainly when it comes to India's diplomacy, when it comes to India's foreign policy, if you look at in the last 8 to 9 years, it has completely changed under Prime Minister Modi. And the role of foreign ministers and the role of national security advisors have been significant. And if you look at this specific project, the India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor, if you look at that, the National Security Advisor and the Foreign Minister, both of them have worked tirelessly to bring on board all these stakeholders within the West Asia region and beyond. Now, one also has to slightly go back and see how the Indian diplomacy in the last 8 and 9 years have worked tirelessly to enhance relationship with a variety of countries in the region, especially in the West Asia region, which is also known as the Middle East region, where countries which sometimes do not have very good relations among themselves. For example, if you look at Saudi Arabia and Israel, even though they do not have any diplomatic relations, but there has been some improvement of late. There has been talk about normalization of relations. But India has been working with both of them. Similarly, if you look at UAE, if you look at Qatar, if you look at many other countries, Jordan, Egypt, India has very good relations with all of these countries. So as with countries in Europe, Greece, for example, in the Eastern Mediterranean,
Yes.
and all of this, you see this in terms of coming around as a success of India's foreign policy today.
Truly remarkable. But when you come to think of it, it's really a Herculean task to bring everybody on the table and get a consensus, on this kind of massive project where you, as you rightly pointed out, there are differences within. So, it must have been a big challenge to negotiate in terms of those challenges and arrive to this kind of, agreement.
Certainly, when you look at this kind of a situation, you need people who can deliver.
Right.
At the broader international level, who can bring about consensus, who can go and talk to people and convince them of their vision, how effective or how real this vision is. And I think two names in Indian context are very important, apart from obviously the leadership of the Prime Minister. The role of National Security Advisor, Mr. Ajit Doval, is very important. He has worked tirelessly over the last 3-4 months to go and talk to people, to participate in the negotiations and convince them that this is something which is real, this is something which can be delivered, and this is something which all of us should come together and work on.
Absolutely, and this kind of, it needs a special, synergy. To bring about this synergy, you need a person of absolutely nothing less than a genius, to bring about this kind of understanding. But tell me, now that we know that this project is being backed by the US, what will be the impact on, say, the acceleration as far as implementation of this project is concerned, and also the geopolitics vis-a-vis China's Belt and Road project, which is of course these days in doldrums, we know that.
Absolutely. When it comes to the geopolitics in the world today, if one looks at it, or even if one looks at the function of geoeconomics at the global level, right, the United States is at the forefront. There is no doubt about it. There are lots of discussions about whether China can actually take over or come very close to the United States. It has not yet come. And if you look at the trajectory of China's economic growth, over the past few years, it has started to decline. It has started to slow down.
Yes.
And this is something which is very, very important. You can also look at the reaction of smaller countries to which China had kind of, brought together as part of BRI and all that. Most of them, or many of them, have now realized the problem of debt trap diplomacy.
Right.
And many other such problems which the Chinese projects are facing in different parts of the world. So if you look at the US, it still remains the economic leader in the world.
Right.
And if you look at the European Union countries, they remain at the forefront of technological advancements. If you look at the Middle Eastern countries, they remain at the forefront of energy supplies and transformation their economy towards greener future, towards sustainable future. And that is where the synergy between India and all these countries lies, and that is something which is very, very important.
Yes. We Indians are very impatient, and a common man would like to know, what will be the timeline for a project like this to become a reality. What would be your guess, if everything goes right? How long will it take to have the basics of this project coming through?
See, a project of such enormous kind of frame
Yes.
needs time. It cannot be realized in 2-3 years.
Sure.
It requires consistent effort at the level of different countries. Just like today we have leaders like Prime Minister Modi, Foreign Minister Dr. Jaishankar, and NSA Ajit Doval. They are taking it at the forefront.
Absolutely.
And we need that kind of a consistent effort continuously.
Continuously it needs.
At the level of maybe decades.
Right.
But if not decades, at least 5 to 10 years to bring about all the infrastructure.
Yes.
In terms of, there are certain areas where you need infrastructure to be built from scratch.
Right.
And there are certain areas where you need to be infrastructure to be boosted.
Absolutely.
Substantive.
Yes. So that consistency is very important.
Consistency is key here.
Now, tell me that there will certainly be a positive impact on the economic growth, and India will become an important hub and a growth accelerator for the countries which are connected with the project. What is your take on this? Say when this project comes through, how do you see India's positioning itself in the world?
Let me take you back to history, and that is something very important because India was at a point of time the leading world economy.
Right.
And if you look at this corridor, this basically revives the historic connect between India, the Middle East or West Asia and Europe. Yes. This Indian Ocean region has been the transit and trade hub of the world through ages.
Yes.
And if you look at India's growth trajectory, it has really been impressive. It is the world's fastest large growing economies of the world. And then if you look at countries like Saudi Arabia, they are also growing very fast, and they have ambitious plans to transform their economy, the connectivity, the logistics and supply chains.
Yes.
Which means that once this corridor is realized, once it becomes active, once trade comes to fruition on this corridor, this will certainly have a very, very positive impact on India's economy and India's surrounding countries, the countries which are part of this network. For them also, this would be a very important economic development.
Absolutely. And our strengthening of our relations with West Asian countries will also be very promising in the sense that you'll have the investors' confidence will rise in terms of investing in infrastructure project of this magnitude and this importance. What do you say?
No, absolutely. If you look at the ease of doing business in India, if you look at India's other indicators, major indicators in terms of investments, global investments, this has improved significantly in the past few years. And if you look at the FDIs, if you look at investment in portfolio investments, they have also taken, have witnessed rise. And the Gulf countries with their sovereign wealth funds are one of the major investors, foreign investors in the world.
Yes.
In the European economy, in the American economy, in Southeast Asian economy. And if you look at the trajectory of the FDIs coming from these countries, the GCC countries, to India, especially the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia, it has increased. And with this kind of a corridor, with this kind of a promising project being unveiled, this will certainly have a significant impact on the India's investment as a attractive market for international investments.
Absolutely wonderful. Now tell me that what are the historical and cultural ties with West Asia and going beyond in Europe? How will it strengthen those ties or revive? And as you said, we can reclaim our past glory through this project in a way, which is.
Though certainly, if you look at India's cultural ties and India's, ties, historical relations with the countries in West Asia, with the Arab countries, with the European countries, there has been immense cultural interactions between these three, regions. Whether West Asia, the Arab world, whether it is the Gulf countries, whether it is the European countries, especially the Western European countries and the coast of Mediterranean. Right. And this has happened since time immemorial. And this is something which is very, very important. Politics, economy, and culture, they go hand in hand, they go side by side. You cannot detach three from each other. We have a political synergy, we have the intent and the ability to take the economic promise to the next level.
Yes.
And that is, if it is backed by the cultural connect, the people to people contacts,
yes,
that is something which I can call it as icing on the cake.
Icing on the cake, absolutely. Dr. Mudassir Kamar, you came to our studio and you shared your views on this important project which we are seeing in our lifetime. Obviously, and thank you very much for being with us in our studios and taking the time for being here. Obviously, this is a long-term project, and we should be happy that if everything goes well, future generations will definitely benefit from the vision behind it. As and when it happens, India's historical and cultural ties will further strengthen. We have been witnesses to the history in the making. That's all we have for now. We'll be back with another interesting topic. Till then, goodbye from the Matrix team.